I'm really, really excited about this webinar today. If anyone saw my post on LinkedIn, I'm actually really excited to be an attendee on this webinar and learn some things. And I've got some really amazing presenters on this webinar today as well. My name is Kelsey Johnson. I am the head of marketing at Partner Fleet. And I'm just going to go ahead and take us into the presentation as people filter in, because we've got a little bit of an introduction and I want to get into the good stuff. So this webinar is on automation for partner leaders. We're going to be talking a little bit about, what you should actually automate, when you should automate, and when you should maybe not automate something as a process. And then going through some real example use cases of, you definitely should be automating this, and here's how to go through the process of putting that together. I have three incredible founders and CEOs who are all both experienced with tech, because they're all founders of tech companies, but they're also all experienced in partnerships as well. So we've got like the creme de la creme of people for this presentation going on here.
I'm flattered, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Quite an intro.
All right, let's get started. Go to the next slide. We're going to run a quick poll very quickly. Let me see if I can get this up and running to see. Let's see. All right, so pop, just answer our poll really quickly now. I'll have you go to the next slide, Rob, if you don't mind. And let us know for your partner program, what is it that, how many people are in your partner program? How many people are you dealing with here? So, in terms of automation, obviously, if there's just one of you, that's going to be crucial for your job. But even as you get up into these sort of bigger, more like bigger teams, automation is going to be something that you have to, document a lot more. But, we just kind of want to get a gauge of who it is that's here, what it is that you're looking to do. And actually, we did a survey. And so if you'll take us to the next slide, Rob, while everybody's answering the poll.
Sorry, I'm not good at this.
Our master slide guy, Rob. We asked you all when you were registering for this webinar, we asked you, what is it that you are already automating? And what is it that you'd like to learn to automate? And so this is a sort of combination of both of those things, but far more heavily on the what would you like to be automating in your partner program. So partner onboarding, huge key one, right? That's something that can be extremely laborious or, not done properly if you have to do it all manually, just because there's so many factors there. Partner referrals, account creation, co-selling and co-marketing, account mapping, deal registration, and then I really like this one, initial reply to partners who submit an interest form. This is something that is, if you automate it, it is really easy and it makes the person feel important. And then, if you don't, then it can be an extremely laborious process for you to follow up on all of that stuff. This is actually just a really small group of the things that people talked about, but we are going to dive into some of these things in this presentation. And, if by the end there's something else that you feel like we didn't cover, we want to continue to bring you guys this content and build out these examples for you. So definitely let us know, continue to let us know in the chat. And yeah, I am going to close our poll now. Let's see. And let's move on to the content. Let's dive into what it is that we're going to be talking about today. Oh, first of all, sorry. Let me introduce our presenters. So we've got three, like I said, tech founders and partnership people, CEOs and founders. Amazing. We've got Eddie Patch he's the CEO and co-founder of Partner Portal.io. He specializes in scaling revenue for B2B organizations, and he's based in Manhattan, where you'll find him scootering recklessly on a sidewalk with his daughter. Again, not too recklessly, I hope. Manhattan is
Not
not the
always.
place to be doing that.
No promises.
We've got Rob who's this co-founder and CEO of Superglue, a partner ecosystem engagement platform for SaaS companies. Before that, he founded a SaaS company that generated up to 70% of its 8-figure revenue via partners. So he is a partner expert for sure. And then we've got Kenny. Kenny's the CEO and co-founder of Partner Fleet. He's my boss. We work together at Partner Fleet. He's a no-code partner. Partner Fleet is a no-code partner marketplace platform. Before founding Partner Fleet, he actually ran tech partnerships and was an early employee at G2. So he is a developer, he's a CEO, co-founder, and also has an entire career of experience in partnerships. So we've really got the cream of the crop here.
Thank you.
Thanks
Kelsey.
for coming, guys.
Thank you for having us.
All right, now let's dive in a little bit. If you'll take us to the next slide, Rob. I'm going to pass it over to Kenny to talk a little bit about why you should really use automation briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. On this slide, Kelsey, can we move the headshots to the left so that we can see this full graphic for a little bit?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that around automation is why should you use it? What's the point of it? And ultimately, it's looking at what you're doing on a regular basis, how often you're doing it, how long it takes you, and whether or not you can save time by automating it or get consistent results and scale up and do more of it by automating it. I know, Rob, you have great context here with your opinion on automation and what you've done. So why don't you give some of that?
Yeah, so when we start working with companies, very often we talk about their goals, things that they want to automate. And one thing that I've learned is that all too often people start diving into automations too soon. Right? I've seen a lot of cases, and in a lot of cases I blame myself, where we build amazing automations and then we realize that there is stuff that we automated a process that only takes place twice or 3 times a month. And very often that just doesn't make sense. There are exceptions. That's what we talked about yesterday, right? In our preparation session, where you have certain tasks that have such a high priority, and if you overlook them, there are massive downsides, and it makes sense to automate them. But all too often, I think automation is something that is too random, and people, I think it makes sense to take a step back, think about your goals, your priorities, think about different tasks that happen, the time these tasks take. The third dimension is probably the importance of tasks, and then prioritize your automation projects.
Yeah, I really like the topic there about figuring out what is the prioritization there of like, is it worth doing? I mentioned yesterday, right? I've done automations where all they are is actually a calendar invite. So I know that, oh, that one thing I do once a month that's incredibly important, like running payroll, which isn't automated, but if I forget to run it, it's a problem. I have a calendar notification. That's my personal automation to make sure it gets done. It happens rarely, but it's incredibly important.
I think that's a good point, by the way. In automation, very often I see people that look at a process and they want to automate everything, right? Kind of create this hands-off process. And sometimes payroll is a great example. Same for, I have that automation as well. I have these reminders. But probably going through a process of automating that process in smaller organizations like ours would not make sense. I still log into the tools. I move, a couple of documents from here to there, and I trigger payroll, and that's fine. And I think that's a very important point. But there are certain parts of that process that I do need to automate because they're time-consuming, annoying, or I could overlook them.
If you put yourself in the shoes of a large organization like you were at before, and you look across your everyday workload, like how would you prioritize? Where would you start? Are you looking at the number of activities that are occurring on a particular task? Are you looking at where it falls in the funnel? Like, how are you separating that, Rob?
One of the things that I learned is that, I look at that, right? I look at the amount of activities and that kind of stuff. but I also look at the impact. So especially when you start automating things and it feels, you have somebody, especially in a big organization, that is going to look at what you did, right? And if you tell them I automate this and that, they can't clearly link these automations to, for example, revenue. Then it might be harder to justify further initiatives that, kind of take you down that path. So I think you do have to be somewhat strategic in terms of what you want, but you also, in big organizations, need to look at like, what is the broader goal? How can we contribute to that? So it's it has to be a prioritization exercise that you go through.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a good transition to when to automate and when not to. One of my favorite topics, I like the visualization that you picked here, Kelsey. The one thing that I've seen quite a lot is also that companies automate things that they haven't figured out yet. So I see this happening with a lot of very early partner programs where people haven't figured out who's the ideal partner. How do we get them, to, for example, submit the first lead? But they already start thinking about automation, and you end up with a garbage in, garbage out process. You should say shit in, shit out, because it's just that's a big problem. That's a big challenge, right? Like if you don't need to have a perfect process. But I do think you need a pretty solid idea of what you want to do, or you need to have somebody that can help you with that, can give you guidance in terms of what is the best in class process look like. Because otherwise, you're just doing mediocre things at scale. Not sure how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I like to think about automation and when not to automate is don't automate a process that you couldn't give to an intern and have them do it consistently over and over again. If you've got your process figured out to the point where you could hire an intern who can't think for themselves and just follow your step-by-step list and get the same output or similar output, then that's a process worth automating because you know exactly what you need to do end to end to get the same output.
Great point. So, topics to automate. I think, Eddie, you had a couple of points here yesterday.
Yeah. So, kind of looking forward, we're going to go through some tactical examples, and we're going to drill into three of these that we're looking at. So there are a number of ways that you could automate. We could probably go on for hours talking about this. The examples we're going to go through coming up are going to be around strategy and design, co-selling, co-marketing, managing and reporting. Of course, when it comes to enabling any type of training, incentivizing, there's a number of additional automations you could do. But those are the three examples we're going to go into. At the end, we're going to go through some more concepts around measuring and maintaining. And so if you want to hang around to the end, we're going to go through that as well. So for the first one, I'm going to hand it over to Kenny, and he's going to kick off the first example we're going to walk through.
Awesome. Yeah. So as mentioned a little bit in my background, my experience is technology partnerships. I owned integrations, the API platform at G2 and other companies. And so one of the key things for me was, how do I figure out a partner roadmap of what we're going to work on, what we're going to focus on, and how do we then actually drive that to adoption? And so in this scenario I've kind of laid out here, I'm going to talk about how you can take those disparate feedback sources, like a customer asking about a Salesforce integration on a call versus CS ticket versus your partner marketplace, collating all of that into a feedback tool like Product Board. And then from there, it's still manual. That's where you go and analyze that data. You work with your partners to figure out what the process is to get that integration built or get that partnership off the ground. But once you have that, you already have all the data of who was interested, and you can actually automate driving that adoption through a standard go-to-market process. And so I'm going to walk through that first process, a few examples I've used before about taking that feedback and getting it into a tool like Product Board. Rob, next slide. So I've used tools like Gong and Fathom. So they'll record your calls, but you can actually set up triggers. So in this case, I'm showing a trigger that I've done in Gong, where anytime any term within partnerships, so integrations, APIs, partnerships, is mentioned on the call, it'll automatically feed that into product board. Same thing with Zendesk tickets. As an example, you can feed all of those requests in. And then at the bottom here, hidden, I think, by our faces right now, is also activity on a partner marketplace. And so something like Partner Fleet, where you can see the activity your customers are doing, you can automate all of that either through direct integration or a tool like Zapier to pull that data into product board. Where this is valuable is this now gives you an automated way of getting all that data together. You now know who is asking for it. So you have the account information, you know what they're asking for in context, because it's not just, oh, do you have a Salesforce integration? But it's, oh, a Salesforce integration would be great because of X, Y, and Z. And then you can use that information to build your partner roadmap, reach out to potential partners and say, hey, we've got these 5 accounts asking for us to work together. All of that data can then go into whatever your onboarding and recruiting automations look like. But then the other piece about using a tool like Product Board is the fact that it actually generates an ideas portal where your customers can go and vote on things. So you could put out there 10 different partnerships you're going to work on and actually have your customers tell you which ones are the most important, and continue to use that data as you go into that recruitment and building phase.
By the way,
a lot of companies, oh, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just going to briefly comment. I love all of that because we're basically using automation to use data more systematically. I think in partnerships, we could be a lot more data driven. If we look at other departments, how they work, and have the data guide us towards taking the right action. So that's why I love this and what I think automation should help us do.
I love this.
Same thing.
I love this too.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kelsey.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, this also, we've taught, like, we went to the Supernode conference, and so many of the presentations were on pitching to your C-suite and bringing the right data and bringing the right story to advocate for the stuff that you're doing in partnerships. And this is like such an amazing automation to, in the background, be collecting that data so that when you need it, you really can make a case for your own program.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, defining roadmap. Of course, this is a great way for the internal and getting the buy-in on C-suite, but products like Product Board and their competitors, they also give you that external option for roadmap upvoting and getting that in front of potential prospects and customers and allowing them to also contribute to the roadmap of all being data-driven and automated is super. It's great.
Kenny, we got a question too before you move on.
Okay.
Do these tools, and the tool specifically Product Board, also help bucket these requests by the why a customer wants the feature? So the context around why they want it, not just what they want.
Yes. So the information will be pulled in through the integrations. And then you can actually create your own buckets of whys in Product Board, for instance, and start putting them together. And so when looking at a partner roadmap, maybe one of your whys is break into the CRM market. And then you start to know which partnerships your customers are telling you are most important to break into the CRM market. And so you can do a business why as well as the why the customer wants the integration. One other piece I was going to mention here is what a lot of companies do right now, what a lot of partnership people I've talked to right now do instead of this, is they have every other week call with their sales team or their CSM team, their support team, and ask for this information, and they're only going to hear from the loudest voices. This gets rid of that personal bias to actually hear directly from the customer and then use that to sell to your internal teams, sell to your partners. I've used this process to actually get a partner who we'd never talked to before to build an integration to our platform. Awesome. And a lot of companies will stop here, but you now have all of this information already, and you should use it to really create a go-to-market process. So we've had customers of Partner Fleet who create a waitlist process on their marketplace where companies will sign up and say, oh, that integration's coming, I'm interested. So you're generating early adopters, but you also have all of those accounts already in product board that have told you this is important to them. And you can automate that into a marketing automation campaign, potentially even into ads, to really drive early adoption and drive those conversations further or re-engage those prospects after you launch the integration. This is something that I've seen successful partnership programs. They're the ones who also have that go-to-market as part of their plan whenever they're launching a new partnership. And this is a way to help with that.
Cool.
Eddie, I think you're up.
Yeah, thank you. That tees me up nicely. This is a topic I'm super excited to talk about. This is going to be great for any partner marketers that are here live. If you are here, love to see you in the chat. But anyone who also isn't fortunate enough to have a partner marketer on their team, I'm going to go through some co-marketing examples and things you could do to amplify your marketing alongside your partners. So this first example I'm showing you here is around leveraging your account mapping. If you are on the free plan with Reveal or the free plan with Crossbeam, you might not have full access to some of the automations I'm talking about here. But if you're on the paid plans, absolutely, you'll be able to do everything I'm going through. So I want to take you to an example in your mind, in your inbox. We all get the notifications when there's a new overlap, or you find out that one of your partners is working with somebody for a new overlap customer. Oftentimes we'll take that email, we'll go reach out to the AE that's on the deal, or kind of do like a one-off check-in with the sales team. And so the better way in terms of automating would be to allow those overlaps to start funneling into a dynamic list in your CRM. So whether you have HubSpot, Salesforce, Pipedrive, whatever it might be, creating that dynamic list that's constantly updating with all the overlaps that you're experiencing with your partners. And below that, I kind of showed you some additional workflows you could do with those dynamic lists. Most importantly, get them marked as partner influenced, get them marked as marketing contacts, and we can start to do some really cool stuff with it. So Rob, on the next slide, I'll show you an example of a few things you could do. So dynamic lists populating, we know that there's a prospect or potential prospect in our world. They've entered into our ecosystem by way of our partner, and it's going to be a delay and some time before our AE reaches out or gets introduced and connected. So what we do is start building air coverage as soon as that overlap takes place. And so as soon as we know that somebody has either become an open opportunity with one of our partners or has become a customer, we could start running ads, display ads on those prospects. And so I'm using Rollworks. You can plug it into a number of different ABM platforms or just general DSPs. But this is a great way to start planting the seed, getting feelers out there, and automating that first touch and air coverage even before the conversation begins. Another example on the next slide, Rob, would be taking that dynamic list and creating some email automation and trigger emails that take place. And so let's say that I know I have a new overlap with my partner. It's a great way, especially if I have that contact already in my database, it's a great way to say, hey, look, I understand you've been evaluating our partner. You're looking for a new account mapping tool. We're actually a partner of the company you're looking at, and that's the reason why I'm reaching out. And so it's a very kind of transparent outbound that comes directly from our salesperson and sometimes directly from our C-suite, me. And basically, it's just a great first touch and make sure that we're not having to do those kind of one-off emails here and there whenever I see an overlap. So another great way to automate.
I got a question on that, Eddie, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
What do you recommend with regard to making this email feel more like like it's coming from a real person versus, having it seem more like an automated email? do you think that it's better, like you get a better response when the like copy of that email sounds really like you and it sounds like you sat down to send it out?
Yeah, good question. So we'll try to use as many custom object or hyperfields in the email as we can, and it always comes from a person and not from marketing. And so one thing that we've talked about, and Rob, his examples are going to be really hit on this, is the idea of having the emails come directly from an individual. They're much higher response rates, higher open rates, and try to customize as best we can. Keep in mind, this is kind of just like a very basic tee up. It's just a way to ensure that we're not allowing any of these overlaps to fall through the cracks, and that we're keeping up with all of them as they're happening.
Yeah, I have an additional question as well. In this case, as I understand it, you're emailing the company that the overlap is of, right? About Crossbeam as your partner. Are
Yep.
you letting Crossbeam know that this communication is happening, that you're kind of reaching out and saying, hey, we're huge fans of Crossbeam when that overlap happens? And are they giving you any credit from a partnership perspective for that type of reach out?
That's a good point. So typically, this just goes into our partner influenced marketing in our own CRM. We usually don't start to engage Crossbeam in this example until we're a little further in the sales process. Maybe there's a demo scheduled at that point. But no, this isn't something that we're sharing analytics on with them or kind of like passing over.
Okay.
It's not a bad idea though.
I love those campaigns though. Like this stuff really works. Pre-Crossbeam, I know my years ago, we used to do stuff like that, and it's just so powerful. I think the thing about email marketing or just email campaigns is that if you are extremely relevant, then personalization isn't as important. Sorry, by the way, I don't know, there are a bunch of planes flying by in the background over here. It's never happened, maybe. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, coming back to that, right? Like relevance is a huge driver. I get emails that are not personalized at all, but they address exactly the main issue that I'm facing at the moment, is the reply. So I think that works. Obviously, you can enhance it with personalization, etc. And we'll talk about that when I talk about my example.
I mean, there's a number of things that now with generative AI that can help with that intro, and I know your tool has incorporated that into giving that prompt. But even just being able to leverage AI on the first, second, like 1-2 punch can go a long way. Major CRMs haven't quite gotten to the point where they're allowing you to pipe that in. But if you're using any email marketing automation platforms, kind of like the tier 3, tier 2s, all of them have really adopted this and embraced it. So it's kind of worth exploring, I would say, if you want to get that additional personalization. Yeah. I threw in one extra bonus here. So there's a few companies out there that allow you to do some interesting things with content. And so I wanted to throw this in there because we all, when we partner with somebody, at least once a year, if not 2 or 3 times, we want to come together and put together a joint blog post. And we want to automate some type of content calendar, and whether it's around an integration, announcing the partnership, or just doing some thought leadership on any particular topic. And oftentimes getting to the point where you're producing a joint outline can be really time consuming, not to mention, you want to maintain balance between the 2 partners. And so this is an easy way to just queue up an outline for both parties. There's a tool called Byword, and it's what it can do is take multiple URLs and scrape them and basically write up a joint article for you. And it's not going to be what you're going to go publish, but it's going to be the initial outline that you could start with. And so in this example, I pulled an article from Partner Portal about second-party data that we published, and then I pulled an article from Partner Fleet, and it gave me a few suggestions around the other topics we've talked about, but like what it wanted me to prompt the article to be. And so if you go to the next slide, what it did is it went and scraped the 2 articles, and then came to a point where it put together an outline for me. And so it mentioned the
Terribly sorry for being such a mediocre host. I don't know what I turned on here. There we go. Sorry about that.
Nice. So what it did was produce an article that combined both of our content into one. And I could take that and move it onto a Google Doc and we could start working on it. The best part about that is that it did recognize the voice of our brand and the voice of Partner Fleet. It recognized the terms that we already use in our own terminology, and it gives us a great starting point. So next time you're going to be kicking off a joint blog post, think about doing something like this. It could save you at least a few hours, if not more.
Eddie, I mean, these look fantastic. We should do these legitimately. You and Kelsey should start working through it.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. We will. But there's the screenshots, a little teaser. But yeah, that's it for my section. I'm excited to hand over to Rob. He's got some really interesting things leveraging Superglue. So we'll pass it on to him.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, I talk about Superglue and show you how to set up certain automations, but please keep in mind, like, we're obviously not the only tool that's out there, and you can use different tools. You probably have to combine a couple of automation tools to replicate some of the stuff I'm going to show, but the goal is really to show you what's possible. And I want to talk about co-selling, just because I think there are huge opportunities in that space. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to connect Salesforce, Crossbeam, ChatGPT, Slack, and Gmail to Superglue, and then automate a co-selling workflow. By the way, this setup takes 13 minutes, so it's very often these automation tools are pretty straightforward to set up. So when it comes to co-selling, the big challenge that I think a lot of organizations face, and I saw that in the beginning of the webinar when we showed kind of your answers as to like what you're automating. Two things that stood out was you said like, or some of you said you're automating account mapping and you're automating co-sell alerting. I think that's awesome, but it's not enough. It just means that you initiate the process of the co-sell. But the question is, what happens next? Is everything that happens after these alerts happen, you reaching out to somebody, keeping people involved in the deal, your partners involved in the deal, is that all manual? Because if it is, it's very limiting, right? Because you've only, if you look at it, the entire process, you've only eliminated the effort in the first step. So I'm very passionate about automating basically outreach to your partners when you have a new Crossbeam overlap. But the other thing that I want to focus on today that I think is extremely exciting is keeping people involved in the co-sell process. So basically not having a partner refer you a deal, you handing that deal to your AE and then kind of not knowing what's happening, the partner not being aware of what's happening, and the deal at some point in time closing and everybody's going to be happy. I think the proper co-sell process, or that's what we see, should be one where the partner hands you a referral and you keep them involved in the sales process, because that keeps them excited and makes sure they feel valued.
Rob, we lost you for just,
Oh,
I don't know if that was everybody, but I think I lost you for like just maybe 20 seconds if you would back up.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, so I was talking about the co-sell process, right? Like us focusing on the co-sell process where we, rather than handing over a lead to one of our AEs and then letting them do their job, we should keep our partners involved. We should basically we should keep them updated proactively, right? Rather than telling them you need to go there or there, like look for the stuff. We should keep them involved proactively to keep them excited, but to also enable them to help us win their deal. Right? The result of an involved partner in the deal, the sales process, is a higher ACV, higher close rate, and a shorter sales cycle. So I'll show you how we can automate some of that stuff. And I will need to switch to another screen. I'm not very good at this. I think you've already realized that I'm not great at doing this stuff. But here we go. I think we should.
Sharing your screens on webinars is a completely different skill set than building automations.
Yeah, I suck at it. I think next time you're probably going to nominate somebody else. You can see like a Superglue dashboard, right?
Yeah, I've got a great, I've got a testimonial too before you move on, Rob, from Hope Baker. She says that they've reactivated 3 partners that went dark with Superglue.
I love
Many
it.
great use cases. So
I love it.
Awesome that we're going to see that in action.
I love it. Yeah, I hope we're setting this up with Hope next week as well, actually. But yeah, so let me show you how this all works, right? We've got opportunities that were generated or sourced by partners. We want to keep them posted. So the way we do this, like here in Superglue, we would just take a blueprint. If you have a tool that's not built for partnerships that you want to automate stuff with, you might obviously have to build this yourself, but you'll see it's not that difficult. So we give it a name. So this would be a partner sourced overlap moves into negotiation stage. You see that I'm terrible at multitasking too, so I'm not going to fix this. But we basically want to keep our team involved and alerted if an overlap happens and moves into a certain stage. In this case, in the negotiation stage, because that's when stuff gets serious and when a partner can really help us drive this thing across the finish line. In this case, I'm connecting my Gmail account to this automation because all of this stuff should be triggered in my name and it should be sent from my Gmail account rather than from some generic email. It's also what Eddie said earlier on. So now I'm going to click create. And now all that's left to do is I need to configure the trigger. I think that's obviously the important thing. What we see is that a lot of people, we've talked to a lot of people how they track, for example, partner influence. Most people, despite the fact that a lot of people talk about tracking partner influence at custom objects in Salesforce, most people have that in a custom field on the opportunity level. So basically what I'm telling Superglue now is that in which field I'm storing the account that is the partner account that's helping me on this opportunity. And then I tell, I basically configure the trigger. I tell it, hey, this deal negotiation needs to move into the negotiation stage. And obviously we don't want this for every deal. The deal has to be a partner sourced deal, right? So we just say that the partner sourced deal field is not empty. So now we've set up the trigger. So now what happens next? And I'm going to show you what the process looks like in, when you actually activate this, because this is not fully automated. This is also something that's kind of like the stuff that Kenny talked about. But let's finalize this automation. The first thing that should happen is an email should be sent out to our partner telling them that we're in the negotiation stage with one of the deals that they sourced for us. What I find really interesting is adding actually additional steps. So we could, for example, add a wait step where we basically, for example, wait 30 days. And then after 30 days, we have Superglue check if that deal is still stuck in the negotiation phase. So basically, what we're doing is, after 30 days, if the deal still hasn't closed, and again, that time frame might be different for your business, we create a task with AE, where basically what we automated, what we created is a setup that I'm going to show you in real life in a second, where the opportunity moving into a specific stage triggers this automation. It alerts the partner manager via Slack, and they can take action. They can inform their partner, but they will also be notified if that deal still isn't closing. We can, of course, also automate follow-up emails, etc. So let me show you what this looks like in real life. This is my Slack, and in Slack I get notifications to handle different tasks. So I have different automation set up in my account here. So in this case, I want to onboard somebody, enable somebody. But what we just talked about, what we just set up, is this partner-sourced opportunity notification. So Superglue alerts me that a partner-sourced opportunity is in the negotiation stage. The interesting thing about this automation is that hardly anybody tracks the actual contact that sourced the opportunity for you on the opportunity level. So now we need to link this opportunity that was sourced by a partner, in this case Accenture, to the actual person that needs that update. And the way we do this is we click Add Partner Manager. We're taking it to Superglue, where we've already pre-assigned a partner manager, that the relevant partner manager, but we can change that if somebody else would be responsible. And then Superglue provides me the email templates to update that partner. That includes important information, standard information, the stuff that Eddie mentioned earlier on, right? These custom fields that make the stuff important and relevant and helpful. But I can, of course, add additional stuff. So as a partner manager, I now have the ability to work with this template. I get alerted. I work with this template. I add additional content if necessary. And as you can see here, after I send this out, Superglue waits, it checks after 30 days, and then it sends me another notification Slack if that deal is still stuck in the same phase. So I click save and approve, and that's it. So what we just did is we went through the process of creating an automation. This took us, how long? I don't know, 3 minutes. And these automations are so powerful because now we are a lot more aware of what's going on. And I think this is like also what I think, Kenny, what you mentioned, right? I think in partnerships, the more we work with signals, the more, rather than us deciding, hey, I think we should build this integration, we should talk to this partner, oh, I should check in with this person. If we work with signals and these signals help us create relevant touch points, we can be a lot more successful. In the case of this co-sell motion of keeping partners involved in the opportunities, I think there's a huge opportunity to actually leverage a mode of success to drive further excitement with our partners, right? Like, because we're not just enabling them to help us on their deal, we're showing them that we take this stuff seriously, and we're showing them that this works, customers like it, and that creates a very nice effect that spills over into further revenue, further opportunities. So
this is something that has been available for marketing teams for decades now, I feel like. And it's so cool to see this be available for partner teams, like explicitly. I think it's awesome.
I think
and
overall,
I'm now like, oh, we need some more automations internally. I got some stuff to set up.
I think it's what you talked in the beginning, right? I think if you look at other departments, they have all of these cool tools that are custom built. And I think in partnerships, we've got 3 people here, right, that decided that there is a need for further tech. In partnerships for too long, we were stuck with basically Salesforce and then a couple of other tools that were built for other teams, and us trying to tweak them to our needs. And I think that's just, and then we didn't have resources, right? We didn't have partner ops resources. So it's just a very, very painful situation where no tools, nobody to help us adjust the tools that could kind of solve our problems, and basically us not being able to create the same kind of scale as other departments did.
All right, let's move on to tracking. How can we track the return on the investment of this stuff?
If I may start.
Go for it.
I love this topic. So one other thing that I very often tell people is that I think in a lot of other areas, in a lot of the other departments, people build business cases. They track pretty much everything that's happening. A lot of tools actually built for tracking. If you look at sales enablement tools, a major kind of part of the functionality is about tracking performance, overlooking performance, etc. And I think in partnerships, we lack a lot of that. We lack tools that have those capabilities. But I think it's very important, like you said, also if you want to pitch what you're doing to the C-suite. So I think it starts with thinking about your goals before you take action, and then think about easy ways to track. And I say easy ways because what I see very often is that people, just like with automation, they try to go from nothing to very sophisticated tracking where you have everything under control. And I've made that mistake myself 3 times already. I'm trying not to make it at Superglue because that just means you create a monster. You're stuck basically building amazing reporting over 6 months. And the interesting thing is then you end up with these reports and half of them are useless. So I think it's about taking a very step-by-step approach and a very focused approach. That's the other thing. I think we have I know partnership impacts everybody, like every department in your organization. But if you try to measure the impact on every organization, you're just you're spreading yourself thin, I personally think you need to focus. You need to focus on the top 1, 2, 3 benefits or impact, the impact you're driving, and you need, like that, you create a clear narrative in the story, and you can position the partner department rather than feeling like this, this great team in your organization that kind of does everything, but that does nothing properly. So that's kind of my take on tracking and analytics.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know what the outcomes you're trying to get are, because you need to be able to track against it. But one of the things that I've run into, and a lot of people end up running into, is you build out automations thinking, you're trying to get to a certain outcome. Maybe you're trying to accelerate onboarding a new partner, right? You accelerate onboarding a new partner, but you're still not actually generating any net new leads out of this. You're getting the same number of leads. And so you were measuring the wrong thing. But maybe you go and your goal is to get increased time to first lead from each partner. And so accelerating their onboarding is going to be important. Well, you go do that, but then that might have been the slowest thing or the thing blocking you the most. You've now got the next one you have to go do until you go through your process. And so it's very much your entire system only works as fast as your slowest thing. And figure out what that slowest thing is, automate it so it can do more, and then you're going to find what your next slowest thing is to automate, all towards that one goal at the end, whether that's generate more revenue or accelerate time to first referral from a partner. Whatever it is, you're going to find the slowest thing, fix that, and keep working forward and forward and forward.
I think it's interesting how that approach will also impact the way that we look at KPIs and the way that we measure internal success. If anyone's ever used a platform like a couple of the email automation platforms, one of them is called Lemlist. There's a few others that will show you how much time you've saved by using their product. And it'll say you've saved 3 hours. That's enough for you to go outside and have a lunch or a walk. But basically, like, that becomes an automation KPI. And if you're a C-suite or you're looking at the efficiency of the company, you're looking at those two things and those items that you mentioned, Kenny, like time to onboard, time to first launch. But what I could see people getting to a point where they're actually breaking down the automations that took place in between, the task saves, the time saved. And so I think it's a direction that things are going, and there's no reason why the partner teams couldn't lead that. I think there's an interesting opportunity to start looking at those.
Yeah, I actually really like that, because one of the things we talk about a lot in partnership is reciprocity to your partners. But in reality, one of the things that started to dawn on me recently is you also need to do that internally. You need to provide value to your sales team, your CSM team, your support team, your product team, because you're asking for things from them. And so that reciprocity needs to be internal, and making sure that you're focusing on the right impacts that your team can make to benefit those other groups. To Rob's point, you can't do every KPI for every group, but focus on the right things for how you're going to give them value, because then they're going to actually care what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Great points. Yeah, and like what we showed here, right? I think the interesting thing is, Eddie, you said, like, you mentioned that you could go on a walk if you save 3 hours. Unfortunately, we never do.
No.
And this is like what this graph showed, this visualization shows, right? What happens, I have zero fear that partnerships will be like that. Partner teams will be automated and replaced with bots. It's just like, especially partnerships is very people driven. It's very relationship driven. There's a lot of project work. So, but I do think that we can become a lot more productive. And what happens if the more automation tools you implement, the more you do it, the more you drive an impact. And obviously, if you measure that properly, you have a great story internally.
Yeah, you mentioned something right there, Rob, that I think is really important, is that partnerships are always going to be about the relationship. It's always going to be about you and the other person, let alone the other company. And automations, a lot of people have this fear that they're going to remove that personal experience. And it's not. Sometimes you'll build an automation that does that, and that's just a bad automation. Again, garbage in, garbage out. But when you do it right, the automations are just making both of your lives better. So the time you spend together on your relationship is that much more valuable.
Exactly.
All right, I love that. What a great discussion today. I certainly learned some stuff. I was so excited about this, and it was and it was really great. I am going to be sending out all of these slides for anybody that missed anything or wants to review anything. We're going to send out the recording as well. Please feel free to contact any three of them, Kenny, Eddie, or Rob. I put their email addresses here. Write them down, send an email if you have any questions, or if you want to learn especially if you want to learn anything more about Partner Fleet, Partner Portal, or Superglue. And we do have a few more minutes for Q&A. If anybody has any questions that they want specifically answered by Rob, Kenny, and or Eddie, while I'm waiting around to see if anybody does have any questions, I wanted to do another testimonial of Superglue from Krista. So sorry if I totally bungled your name. Superglue has made our life easier in reactivating, onboarding, and enabling partners. That's just so great to hear that they've been able to do that. We do have a question from Laura. What do you think are the best practices in integrating automation with the personal touch that creates real relationships and trust? That's a great question.
I'll kick it off with my quick answer there. Is ultimately, marketing's been doing this for a decade now. We should definitely learn from their tips and tricks on how to use automation and still keep that personal touch. Sales has been doing it as well. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel to make sure that we're doing it. But what we need to do is make sure that the automations themselves, we're not automating away any chance for that personal touch. We're actually incorporating it into every automation.
And there's just so much access to additional data points that can help influence that personalization. Again, looking at like a marketer, like any type of intent signals, any type of like first party signals, the way they're engaging with your website or even your partners, there's enough of that to make it relevant enough. But I think it has to be done really tastefully. It's the same thing with sales. Like there's a good right way to do it and definitely a wrong way.
I think the probably you'll be surprised. So I have this, see this a lot when I talk to organizations. Very often people are like, oh, we don't have any data about our partners. And then you look into their CRM and there is more data than you think that you can use. So just two examples of standard fields that everybody has in Salesforce. It's the last activity date and the contact created date. So you can already use those two to combine with, for example, a partner tier or a partner type to create alerts, right? If a contact is created, you know that contact is new, so you can set up automations, reminders based on the newness of that contact in terms of onboarding, enabling them. You can also use it, you just mentioned this, Kenny, right? Look at other programs. Look at loyalty programs. The most successful campaign and most loyalty programs are birthday campaigns. Basically just sending an email, hey, happy birthday, here's your discount. Why? Because it feels so personal, even if it's automated, and we know it's automated. You can do similar things with the contact created date. It's been a year that we've been in touch. Here, how happy are you? What can we do for you? It is so a lot of this. So I'm now talking about the full automation or the more automated stuff or the notifications. Last activities date is very powerful because it tells you when you last talked to somebody. You should be aware of the fact that if the last activity date is more than like 6 months ago, that person has forgotten about you. Like if you haven't interacted, if they haven't interacted with your organization, they're doing other stuff. That rep is not going to talk to a customer and remember you unless that's such a perfect fit. So you can build smart automations on these standard fields that you have available. And then how do you add the personal touch? Well, like I just showed you that process where the way we do it, we set up alerts, or you can set up alerts with other tools, and you can then obviously customize things based on that specific contact. I think the thing with the personal touch is it depends on the use case, but it also depends on the persona. So a junior AE in a tier 3 partner that was in a lunch and learn probably doesn't need the same type of personal touch as the I don't know, SVP that works in your top partner and just brought you into a big deal. So, but that data is all available in your CRM usually, and you just need to use it and think about how to incorporate it in an automated or semi-automated or just an alert setting process. Or
yeah, I also think that to add to that is, I don't know, in my personal life, when I was running partnerships, when I, even here reaching out to customers, prospects, my emails are pretty dang similar, right? Because I have a specific goal, whether I'm setting up a QBR with a customer or I'm setting up an intro call with a partner, I'm giving similar information with just a little bit of personalization. And so it's not hard to go ahead and start automating those. The second one, Rob, and this is tied to what you said earlier, all of us have received the hi first underscore name emails in the past, right?
Yeah.
We've all known that. We're all getting automated all the time. But that, I mean, for me personally, that's never ruined a relationship. That's never been like, oh, they don't care about me. They don't know who I am. But I've had personal emails where they've sent something and I'm like, I don't want to work with you anymore based on the way you wrote that email. And so there's a little bit of that on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the fear, like the fear of automation, I think in partnerships, I very often compare it to sales 10, 15 years ago when people started using sales enablement tools. And I remember like talking to my sales teams, like, when we implemented these tools and everybody being like, hey, this is going to ruin my relationships. This is like, I can't automate selling. And then they realized that we're not automating selling. We are automating tedious recurring tasks that you would have probably forgotten, or that would have like wasted your time, would have taken time away from more important stuff. And I think that's how we got to see automation.
That was so great. We are going to be kicked out in 1 minute. So from the software, no, in 3 minutes. So we do have one more question that I want to hop into, but right before I do that, we did want to pitch a couple of things. First of all, Partner Fleet is launching our in-app marketplace. We will be launching the blog post for that today, and we're going to be doing a bunch of promotions. So go follow us on LinkedIn and check out our in-app marketplace. We're really excited about launching this super amazing new product. And we wanted to let everybody know about that. Rob from Superglue wants everybody to go sign up for his newsletter. He put the link into the chat, but we can repost it again.
Accidentally, I didn't want to be, like obnoxious. But everybody knows that I suck at.
If you want to, if you enjoyed the content you've seen here today, you'll see similar stuff in his newsletter. And then Eddie, do you want to pitch something too?
Yeah, we launched our Zapier integration about a month or two ago, and we've got a handful of users on it. But we're always looking for new use cases. So if you're in the market for a partner portal and you want to have it synced up and connected to the Typeform or anywhere else on the web, I would love to hear your example. So that's my shout out.
Very cool. Lots of new automations there. All right, we've got one other question that we want to hop into with the last minute. What is your experience with companies' data sets? Are they clean enough to go and set up automation, or is there usually a cleanup process first to have all the data in the right place? And how much training behaviors so teams actually update CRM records?
I think the data isn't as clean as in other departments very often, but there are ways around it. What I showed you earlier on, I showed you alerts, etc. That's why full automation is problematic. Very often it's problematic for other reasons too. There is a cleaner process that's involved mostly, but again, if as you set up an automation, there are ways around that, and it shouldn't, it shouldn't keep you. Your data shouldn't keep you from setting up automations. Because I've seen people go, oh, we can do this in a year when we've cleaned our data, and it's just then nothing.
Yeah,
to be honest.
It also comes back to the KPIs that you're going for. If you do this and you don't clean the data beforehand and you get a 2% success rate, but then instead you spent time, a week cleaning up the data manually beforehand and you get a 25% success rate, that's a huge difference. And so it really just depends on how you're going to define success, because that 2% is probably not going to make you ever do it again.
I'd say don't let the data hold you back.
Yeah.
So either create something that's just going forward, or see if you've got the resources to get some of that data cleaned up to the point where you can use it. It's a cool thing about automations. You can draw a line in the sand and just move forward. Well, thank you all very much for coming to this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Again, I will be sending out an email with the slides and with the recording. We will be in touch with everybody I'm sure that the three of us will do more things again in the future. I thought this was great. So we'll be in touch with everybody there. And yeah, go sign up for some newsletters, check out the Partner Portal Zapier integration, and check out our new in-app marketplace. Thanks again.
All right, thank
Thank you
you
so much.
Thanks.